Chains clinked like metallic laughter beneath the twin sons of Vorkal, as the crowd pressed in, eyes gleaming with greed and malice. The slave market reeked of ammonia, sweat, and blood, burned into the dry air with every lash and cry. The auctioneer's voice crackled through a rusted Vox amplifier, shouting out species names like product codes, his thick gray tendrils curling with every high bid. From the observation decks, buyers wrapped in silken robes drank from tall chrome flutes and watched the parade of flesh with amusement. In the center of the platform stood a hooded figure, motionless. No chains on his feet, only wrist manacles. The slavers thought him too broken to run. A low murmur passed among the gathered buyers, as several craned forward, scanning the auction board's flickering feed. Unknown species. No registered markers. No psychic field detected. No resistance. Primitive? Maybe pre-fusion era. One Vortha muttered to his companion. The other laughed, flicking a clawed hand dismissively. Meat's meat. He'll break like the rest. The auctioneer tapped the mic twice, fangs gleaming. Lot 927. Captured from a derelict transport adrift in the null belt. No data. No match. No tum. Look at him, already broken in spirit. A fine specimen for disciplined training or arena fodder. The bidders laughed. A few tossed half-hearted credits into the stream, more as a joke than interest. The figure didn't twitch. He had stood that way since dawn, hood low, shoulders slack, face hidden beneath coarse fabric. No fight. No plea. Nothing. Like a sack of bones waiting to rot. Beside him, a Harkai female groaned as the shock rod prodded her forward. Her child whimpered, tugging at her wrist, eyes wide with terror. The mother tried to shield him, but the guards shoved her down. The crowd roared, delighted at the show of power. Still, the hooded man didn't move. A guard leaned in, sneering. You hear that? That's the sound of your new life, worm. Hope you like crawling. No response. Too far gone, another said, slapping a tag onto his chain. Probably lost his mind during jump trauma. Leave him for cleanup if no one bids. In a back row, a short growl merchant clicked his beak. Something's off. Look at his posture. He's not cowering. He's just dazed, the auctioneer said dismissively. Took a stun bolt during capture. Likely brain fried. But the growl's eyes narrowed. No tremor. No slack jaw. No adrenal spike. He checked the biometric scan again, flat line on every metric. Not dead. Just silent. Bidding stalled. The auctioneer shrugged. Sold to the pits for base price. Guards hauled him down the ramp. His boots dried dust across the metal, leaving no footprints. No resistance, no limp. Just compliance, eerily fluid. Slavers smirked, tossing jibes. Quiet ones die fastest. Bet he pisses himself in the pit. One slapped the back of his hooded head. Still nothing. In the holding cells, slaves were herded into narrow pens. The man was dropped into a corner cage with 4 others, miners from the collapsed Kordath colony. Scarred, skeletal, hopeless. One glanced at him and looked away quickly. Hours passed. Screams echoed through stone corridors. Automated clamps locked shut. Food trays slid into pens. He didn't eat. Didn't sit. He stood facing the far wall. Never turned when guards walked by. Never spoke when others muttered threats or prayers. Word spread fast. A child whispered from another pen. He doesn't blink. Another muttered. He's not bound by code. I scanned him, no implant signature. By nightfall, guards were taking bets on how long he'd last. One said 3 hours in the pit. Another said 2. A third figured he'd snap and bite his own tongue. None saw the tiny shimmer at the base of his hood, the subtle flicker of dampened fields, carefully tuned. Not accidental. When the lights dimmed and most prisoners collapsed into exhausted sleep, he remained upright. Breathing slow. Head still bowed. And still no one had seen his face. metal grated under boots as guards dragged the hooded man through a narrow shaft lit by flickering strips of ultraviolet light. The corridor vibrated with the hum of force barriers and the hiss of opening pens. Air hung thick with recycled sweat, decay, and rusted oil. This wasn't a prison, it was a forgotten engine of suffering carved beneath Vorkal's surface, older than the current regime, unchanged in purpose. Every scream bounced down the walls like static. He was thrown into cell block D, the deepest layer where useless slaves were stored. Those too old, too sick, too broken for resale. The ones with a week to die. A mechanical clang sealed the gate behind him. No questions. No introductions. The other occupants didn't bother looking up, just hunched into corners, resigned to eventual erasure. He stood in silence, unreactive, unmoving. Across the corridor, 2 Krell engineers whispered in low tones, watching him. "Doesn't eat. Doesn't drink. Either he's already dead or—" The rest trailed off as a camera eye above their cell glitched for 2 seconds, then blinked back. They froze. In the following days, anomalies grew. Whenever the hooded man passed through a hallway, doors hesitated before opening. One static panel sparked violently after he brushed against it. Cameras suffered brief but timed blackouts. When asked about system errors, the central AI reported no faults. Diagnostics ran clean. But the disruptions clustered around him, like ripples trailing an invisible force. A maintenance drone entered his cell to perform a routine scan. The device powered on, rotated its lens toward his face, and instantly shut down, its core fried from an unknown overload. Guards joked it was ghost interference, laughing while dragging the drone out. But they didn't replace it. In the mess line, he stood unmoving while food was dispensed. A gelatinous protein pile slid onto his tray, untouched. Others in the line avoided him instinctively. There was no threat, no posturing, no movements, but unease clung to the air near him. Something in the posture, the spacing of his steps. Too precise. Not natural. Like a script being followed. Late one rotation, a pair of newly captured slaves arrived, both warriors from the Katarn clans. One tried asserting dominance, seeing only a passive hooded shape in his path. He stepped close, raised a clenched fist, and stopped. His chest tightened, heart stuttering, vision tunneling. He stumbled back, panting. "Can't breathe near him," he wheezed, falling into a bench. No one mocked him. During medical inspections, the central database flagged his ID as incomplete. A secondary attempt returned an authorization error. No slave in the system lacked an identity tag. No one had ever bypassed the initial implant. But he had none. Not burned out. Not removed. Just absent. A technician tried a manual scan. He brought the tool near the man's neck, then dropped it. It had overheated in seconds, casing blistered. The hooded man didn't flinch. He didn't seem to notice. Rumors spread quickly. Some said he was the first prisoner ever brought in alive from the Null Belt. Others whispered that he wasn't a prisoner at all, that he had come to be caught, that he chose this. A young alien girl, skin translucent and eyes too large for her face, sat near the far wall with a missing limb crudely cauterized. She watched him for days. When no one else was around, she asked in a broken whisper, "Are you one of us?" No reply. "Are you waiting for something?" Silence. She swallowed. "Or someone?" Nothing changed. Yet she didn't look away. On the 5th day, a guard delivered a shock command to clear cells for a surprise inspection. Electric pulses ran through every floor. Slaves screamed, convulsed, collapsed. Except for him. He remained upright as currents arced over his body, harmless. The pulse meter registered a surge, not a drain. Reverse conduction. System flagged it, then logged a corruption error. The file vanished from records. By now, guards kept their distance. The man wasn't marked dangerous, but he was placed on a "Do Not Transfer" list. No one wanted to be assigned near him. He broke nothing. Touched nothing. Said nothing. Yet everyone who shared a cell with him knew something absolute, He was not like them. He was watching. Waiting. And the longer he waited, the more nervous the walls seemed to get. A command was issued from the upper decks: transfer the mute's slave to the arena schedule. No reason given, no challenge requested. Just an order tagged by the overseer with a single word: observe. Guards followed it without question, though several exchanged uneasy glances when they saw his designation. A few had already learned to avoid eye contact, unsure why. The silent one was moved under escort, 5 guards instead of 2, despite no history of resistance. The transfer was logged without biometric confirmation. The scanners returned null fields again, triggering yet another system exception. The console tech muttered under his breath but approved it anyway. He didn't want a reason to interact. In the prep chamber, 2 gladiators were selected. One, a brute from the Malvani strain, famous for single-blow kills. The other, an exoskeletal predator from the Yasi sector, known for chemical laceration attacks. Both were told the match was non-lethal, exhibition only. The audience wanted blood but not death, yet. When the silent man was escorted to the pit floor, the crowd burst into mocking cheers. Dozens of species lined the stands: traitors, pirates, mercenaries, Vortha officers. He remained motionless as the lights strobed and holograms announced the fight. His hood was still in place. He had not been disarmed, there was nothing to take. The first gladiator paced around him, snarling, hammer raised. The second circled from the opposite side, barbed claws extended. The human remained still, head tilted slightly downward. No flinch. No preparation stance. The crowd laughed louder. One of the slavers leaned forward in his seat. How do you make sport of something that won't defend itself? The Malvani swung first, a wide arc aimed to crush his shoulder. The impact didn't land. His arm stopped mid-motion with a crack, not from collision, but from within. Bones snapped as if pressure had reversed along the limb. He screamed, falling backward, clutching a now limp appendage. Shock rippled through the arena. The second fighter hesitated. She hissed, spat corrosive mist, then lunged. She was fast, trained, experienced, but not fast enough. A shift in weight, barely noticeable, and her strike missed. Her claw scraped air. Then she stumbled, dropped, convulsing violently. Blood pooled from her mouth, no visible wound. Monitors went dead. The crowd silenced. Up above, a commander tapped his console, trying to pull health metrics. Every sensor around the pit returned blanks. No vitals. No combat data. Just static. The tech crew scrambled. No feed. No readings. No recording. The hooded man turned his head for the first time. Slowly. Deliberately. Toward the glass observation deck. No expression was visible, but something in the gesture hollowed the room. A cold, physical shift in pressure passed through the chamber like gravitational drag. A few in the front rows stood up involuntarily. One dropped his drink. A younger guard muttered, "He's not fighting." His superior glanced down. "No. He's making them stop." The downed gladiators were dragged out by drones. No announcement. No music. No victor call. Just silence. Then a voice rang through the chamber. One of the auction masters, laughing too loud. "A fluke! Mechanical interference. We'll do a proper fight tomorrow. This one's broken, malfunctioning." Another joined in. "Strip the hood next time. Let's see what he really is." Others laughed along, filling the awkward void with noise. No one wanted to admit what they had seen. The ones in the top box whispered with hushed urgency, bringing up ancient Terran files. Data long sealed, redacted, labeled as folklore. No confirmed sightings in centuries. No registered colonies. Just legends of a vanished apex predator, solitary, adaptive, unreasonably patient. Orders were drafted to extract him for dissection. Another suggested direct interrogation under psychic pressure. Someone else advised sedation, full lockdown. No one acted on them. The command terminal glitched each time input was entered. Access denied? Then reset. then shut off. Back in the slave corridors, words spread like infection. No shouting, no celebration. Just hushed exchanges. What broke gladiators didn't break him. What killed others, he endured without notice. And he had still not spoken. Not moved first. Not responded to any command. One prisoner whispered, "He's not here to survive. He's here to remember." Another, older and blind, corrected him. "No. He's here to remind them." Warning klaxons never sounded. The lights didn't flash red. Systems didn't alert. It began with silence. The arena's command deck lost all visual feeds for precisely 6 seconds. When they returned, the silent man was no longer in the pit. Cameras tried to reframe. They failed. Failsafes rebooted and looped endlessly. By the time guards reached the gate, 4 units were already down, collapsed mid-step without trauma. Their neural links had simply gone dark, like switches flipped off. Across the compound, doors refused to lock. Mag seals reported active, yet panels showed open circuits. Weapon racks glitched offline. Auto turrets rotated wildly, then powered down. Every slave containment unit entered standby, but no override worked. Controls read, "Manual command overridden," though no command was ever logged. The silent man walked through corridor E without interference. A Vortha officer raised his voice, weapon drawn. He fired a plasma burst to disable. The energy discharge collided midair with something unseen and folded back into itself, vanishing in a blink. His arm twitched, spasmed, then dropped dead at his side. His heartbeat accelerated, then flatlined 3 beats later. Collapse. No scorch mark. No trace. Inside the lower barracks, 3 technicians watched through internal cams as the man passed storage cells. They spoke in different dialects, trying to identify him. None succeeded. One initiated emergency lockdown. The system prompted for retinal scan. He leaned forward. The screen went black. His own face reflected back at him, nothing else. Then the console displayed a line. "Access already granted," followed by silence. The lights dimmed across levels. Power wasn't lost, it was redirected. The arena gates opened again, not to let fighters in, but to let the prisoners out. One by one, pens deactivated. Shackles released. Doors opened. The slaves stepped into the corridors not with confusion, but instinct. They followed the path already cleared. Drones deployed to intercept failed to move. Their navigation maps had been rewritten. Motion commands rerouted to loop into empty corners. Tracking failed. Their onboard AI reported normal function, while they remained inert. He reached the upper balcony alone. A Vortha captain stood waiting, armed, flanked by 2 elite guards. They didn't speak, but their stances tightened. The captain, nervous, lifted his arms slowly, palm outward. He opened his mouth to reason. He didn't finish the sentence. The space between his words was filled with a burst of sound, low, pulsing, metallic. Not from a voice, but from the hooded figure. A frequency embedded in the very fabric of the air. The Vortha dropped, convulsing. The guards followed, screaming without making noise. Blood poured from ears and eyes. No wounds. No cause. Just termination. The silent man stepped forward and removed his hood. The nearest monitoring drone overloaded and crashed. What stood beneath it wasn't monstrous. It was simple. Human. Familiar even. A scarred face, jaw tight, eyes without color. His gaze didn't sweep the room. It landed directly on the surveillance array and stayed there. The Slaver Council watched from the secured chamber. Their words, previously loud and boastful, fell to breathless fear. This wasn't a slave. This wasn't property. This was something older. Forgotten not by accident, but by choice. Something sealed away by previous generations who had learned the cost of victory. A whisper passed through the chamber. Genesis Protocol. The phrase hadn't been spoken in 200 years. It wasn't a soldier. It wasn't even a weapon. It was a relic from Earth's final war. A contingency designed to infiltrate and adapt, constructed from neural layering and autonomous enhancement, unleashed only when extinction was certain. And it had survived. He stepped into the central network hub. Surveillance blacked out in totality. When it returned, every cell block had emptied. Every non-slaver being within the walls had been released. Guards who resisted were no longer present in body or signal. In his final act, he accessed the core controls. The interface reshaped itself to accept input it shouldn't recognize. Code cascaded faster than system lag could detect. Language was irrelevant. It spoke to architecture itself. One line of code ended the process. Execute. Release \_all \__ except \__ originator. A pulse spread through the fortress. Lights burst. Engines choked. Systems shut down in perfect sequence. Nothing exploded. Nothing burned. But everything stopped. Outside, those who escaped emerged into the open air. Ships had been primed. Paths cleared. Their identities wiped. Routes randomized. They boarded in silence. And the man, once bound, once ridiculed, was not among them. He had not left. He did not intend to. Transmissions leaked within 12 hours. Grainy, jittered footage captured frames before blackout, snippets of figures moving where no sensor could track, guards collapsing without contact, and a hooded silhouette walking untouched through chaos. Pirate broadcasters aired fragments across fringe networks, each frame dissected, enhanced, questioned. Some called it a fabrication. Others didn't. The silence from Vorkal's command confirmed everything the images suggested. No denial. No statement. No recovery team. Across border colonies, whispers circulated. Not of rebellion, but something older. Not an uprising, something colder, surgical. A legend not built through stories but through absence. Every facility on the planet was empty. Not destroyed. Abandoned. Tools neatly placed. Power grids still running. No bodies recovered. No weapons discharged. Entire systems left running, but no one to operate them. Refugee vessels trickled out from deep space clusters without identifying beacons. Their passengers carried no documentation. When scanned, they returned blank slates. Names forgotten. Codes erased. Entire species previously held in shackles now drifted free, routed through pathways no NAV map contained. Those who asked how they escaped received one answer only: he opened the way. Many tried to locate him. None succeeded. There were no flight records. No biosigns. No footage beyond the final arena shot. Even that was incomplete. Pixels degraded where his features should have been. Enhancement tools failed. Algorithms broke the image down to abstract noise. The only surviving clear detail was the curve of a hand mid-motion, palm extended downward, as if silencing something permanent. Among the Vortha hierarchy, silence gave way to panic. Systems were audited. Protocols rewritten. Formerly discarded files were reopened, reanalyzed, translated from languages no longer in use. They scoured historical blacklists, hunted for old Earth contingencies buried in ancient conflicts. What they found wasn't strategy. It was doctrine. Written in one unbroken thread: do not provoke what remembers extinction. Quiet directives move through government layers. Containment shifts. Evacuation plans? Plans never issued, now pulled from sealed drives. A word appeared again and again in archived military briefings from centuries prior: non-confrontational engagement, avoid provocation, always observe from distance. No direct interaction. That name, Genesis Protocol. Black market scholars attempted to recreate the profile. They cross-referenced gait analysis, skeletal ratios, motion physics. All inconclusive. What little they uncovered pointed to human design, modified, augmented, refined beyond spec. But the anomaly wasn't the biology. It was the intention. He didn't conquer. Didn't enslave. He released, erased, and stayed behind. Among freed species, stories became ritual. A child from the mines told others about the man who stood through electrocution, whose eyes never blinked, who never once spoke yet was heard louder than any scream. Survivors from the arena described the moment their chains released mid-sleep, every door opening without sound, as if someone had simply decided they would no longer be bound. Entire slaver syndicates shut down overnight. Not by raids. Not by threats. Their investors pulled out. Their networks went dark. Someone, or something, had accessed every ledger, every encrypted comm link, and dismantled them without violence. There were no traces left behind. No demands. Just void. In isolated pockets of space, bounty notices circulated, offering record-breaking sums for live retrieval. Every operative dispatched vanished. Not killed. Gone. Equipment recovered, comms silent, ships adrift. No damage. No logs. Just absence. Enough to end the contracts in quiet defeat. Years passed. The story became myth. A name unspoken, only described, hooded, silent, unstoppable. Not a man, but memory. Something left behind when humanity vanished into obscurity. Not dead. Waiting. Unmoved by time. Then one day, a mining crew on the edge of the uncharted bands picked up a signal. It wasn't loud. It wasn't long. Just coordinates pulsing in a repeating string, tagged with a phrase no one had translated in over 2 centuries. Genesis \__ complete. And then nothing more.